Really? That's the face you want to start the stream with? So we should be live here. There's a delay, so it'll tell me in a sec. There we go. We're live.
We're both drinking tea and coffee with the mats.
Yep. Tea and coffee with the mats. Now this one, we're going to be going over Black Cauldron. So our last video was on Godzilla Monster Planet. This one is the Black Cauldron. So this was my choice out of the two. And it was a Disney animated movie from the early 80s. And when I was a kid, I absolutely loved this movie. And one of the things that makes it stand out to a lot of Disney movies is it's the darkest. It is the darkest of the Disney movies. Mainly because of the villain. And the villain was voiced, I don't know if you know this, but he was voiced by John Hurt.
Oh, cool.
And he wanted to do a Disney movie for such a long time. Like he was a big fan of the Disney animated films. And so he jumped at the chance to play the villain. But he said it wasn't his favorite role because it wasn't it wasn't a great Disney movie. And it's not considered like a really good Disney movie. But it always got stuck in my head because I loved the dark kids movies from the 80s. They just don't do that anymore. You know, you had the Dark Crystal, and you had the Black Cauldron, and even the Great Mouse Detective is pretty dark. The Rescuers, the original Rescuers, is pretty dark.
I will say, I mean, Cuba and the Two Strings is probably the one and only dark movie that we get now.
And it's not even that dark, not compared to some of these.
And the imagery, no. But I mean, you know, some kid does lose his eye.
Yeah, the kid loses his eye, and his mom is crazy.
Well, his mom and dad both die.
Mm-hmm.
His grandfather becomes senile, and his mom cuts like one of his aunts, her sister's like face in half.
Right.
Like, I mean, we're talking too much about the
But in the Black Cauldron, you really did have kind of a Lord of the Rings feel to it with the villain.
Yes.
Especially with raising the dead and all of that kind of stuff. But he was such a dark villain. He also reminded me of the original Maleficent. You know, she was a very dark villain as well. Like, people remember those movies. You know, remember like Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella and all those as really nice movies. But Maleficent was a dark villain.
Well, a lot of the Disney movies, even then, were dark. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is a perfect example. Like, the entire premises of the movie is, you know, the queen wants her heart in a box.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't until the early 90s when you had, you know, The Lion King, where the Disney movies kind of took the structure of that kind of kid-friendly. But even in The Lion King, they had the emotional scene of the father dying.
Or, like, even, like, later on, Tarzan, like, the main villain, like, strangles to death.
Yeah. And you had kind of a dark villain in Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
With him, he was very crazy, and he had some dark moments as well. But nothing really comes, besides Maleficent, I don't think any other villain in Disney comes close enough to the guy in the Black Cauldron. I think Maleficent is the only one that's as dark as that character.
Cruella de Vil.
She wanted to kill puppies, but she wasn't as dark and she was more of a humorous evil person.
But I will say, Disney knows how to make a creepy villain, or at least they used to. They don't do it anymore. But like so many of the villains have just been creepy or dark in general. Because like how many movies, live action movies, outside of when they made 101, 102 Dalmatian, where it's like, all right, let's have someone who just kills and skins puppies, and that's what they do.
Well, look at Dumbo and Pinocchio. Dumbo is really dark at moments. He even has a drug trip. Like, he trips out on, he has a hallucination that's really freaky.
Yeah.
That whole hallucination sequence. And then in Pinocchio, they turn the kids into donkeys. They get them drunk and turn them into donkeys in like a horrifying sequence of them screaming as you see them transforming, and then they continue screaming as donkeys. It's like you watch that scene and you're like, whoa, I do not remember Pinocchio being this like horrifying. Because when you think of Pinocchio, you're like, when he lies, his nose gets big.
Gee, I'm a real boy.
But people keep forgetting all of the really dark stuff that happens in Pinocchio. It goes to a whole other level.
I think for a lot of reasons why like Disney movies became a lot, the whole cliche now, oh, it's a Disney movie, it's kid friendly, is because Pixar, came out with Toy Story, and like that is not a dark movie. There's a lot of lines for adults, but it's a kid-friendly movie. And then with the rest of Pixar movies, and then DreamWorks with the Shrek movies.
True, but with like Toy Story does have some more darker elements than the other Pixar films, because like from a toy point of view, Sid is a horrifying villain. Yeah. He basically dismembers them and puts them back together as these horrifying creatures. And if someone had pointed out, I don't remember where I saw it, it was some YouTube video where they were talking about Pixar and villains in Pixar movies. But they show in the movie that the toys feel pain.
Yeah.
Like when Woody gets hit with the light. And it like causes a little burn.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's in when Sid goes away and he animates himself again. He's all, he's in pain. He's screaming. What happened to your visual?
I was just checking. Sorry, I was checking my. Go back to. Sorry, I was checking my. Percent to make sure it's still charging.
And so they pointed out that all of these toys that Sid was messing with, he's pulling their limbs off, and putting them back together. So even though they're not animated because he's watching them, they're going through an immense, horrendous amount of pain.
All right, when you put it like that, yeah.
But it's still very kid friendly. And then in the third one, with them being in the
that's a different story. We don't talk about that. I mean, I will say probably out of any animated movie, Up hits home the hardest for most people. That first 5 minutes is like some of probably the best minutes I've ever seen. I mean, that could have been just a short film that they made.
For the third one?
Up. The opening sequence.
Oh, yeah. Man, the opening for Up is like, it's heartbreaking.
It's one of the best things I've ever seen. But anyway, we're probably back to Black Cauldron. The movie's really dark, or the character, the main villain is very dark. There's a couple of images I really, really enjoyed. There's a part where I can't remember exactly, but like someone's bleeding, and they show like blood, like going from the cauldron. And I'm like, I just really like that look. I love movies that were painted. I miss it. It just gives a more adult feeling.
Yeah, I miss the hand animated movies that are painted. I miss those. And that was, that was during the the prime of that kind of stuff, where the technology was, before computers were involved. I also liked the main character. I liked the kid. I like the fantasy, because I love fantasy. I'm a sucker for fantasy. I give it a lot of leeway when it's fantasy. And I did like the interesting choice of having the pig be this like magical portal to be able to see things that are in the future and in other locations. Like, who would have thought of like a pig? It's not a jewel. It's not a golden jewel or a golden like piece of jewelry, or it's not a gem of some kind. It's not a ring. It's not a physical object that would last forever that you can pass along with people. It's a living thing, and it's a pig. Like, that's very inconspicuous, and it would be easy to hide. It's easy to hide a pig on a farm, So I really liked that. It made it more believable that the bad guy wouldn't be able to know where it is. Like, how do you find a pig on a farm that has magical abilities? Do you go and check every pig? You know what I mean? It's like,
it's what I would do.
And the witches, the three witches, they reminded me a lot of...
Oh! Speaking of the three witches, we need to talk about the scene. I'm pretty sure you know the scene I'm talking about, where she transforms the old man into the frog and gets stuck into her bosom.
Yeah.
And, like, is squeezing them out.
Yeah, a lot of people that I make them watch the Black Cauldron, that's one of the first things they talk about is the frog in the boob scene. Because her boobs are animated very well.
Like,
they're very anatomically correct, large breastises.
Like, why?
It was that time period, man. That's what I'm saying. I love the 80s for some of the movies, kids' movies. Like, you wouldn't get Goonies. You wouldn't get the Black Cauldron. You wouldn't get half the Dark Crystal. The only reason we're getting the Dark Crystal back on Netflix is because of its popularity from the 80s. But it wouldn't have been done originally now. So I miss a lot of that, and I wish we would bring some of it back. Because I would like to see the Black Cauldron done again.
Hell, I even miss, like, they just don't do stuff that they even did for cartoons in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like, Batman the Animated Series wouldn't be made now. Gargoyles wouldn't be made now. Like,
but one of my favorite was DuckTales, and the new one I actually like.
I would say that, there's certain cartoons from the 90s I love that would be definitely made now. Dexter's Laboratory is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Because really stupid. But
I do like the fact that the cauldron brings back the dead.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Like a cauldron you see in every fantasy has to deal with witches and magic. Like, they put all the stuff in the cauldron and they make stuff. So it's like...
I will say I think some of my problems with the Black Cauldron as a movie, I did overall enjoy it, but some stuff definitely felt anticlimactic.
The ending was anticlimactic.
Like, he's supposed to be this all-powerful being, yet it's like, well, if we...
Well, he's not all-powerful. They don't set him up as that, but they do set him up as a very intimidating and powerful guy.
Powerful enough for, 7-year-old kid or whatever to kick the crap out of.
Well, he was destroyed by the cauldron, I thought, too easily. But the scene of him getting pulled into the cauldron and basically having the Indiana Jones face melt sequence.
Oh, yeah.
That is super violent.
He got Jafar'd and Raiders in the same sequence.
I mean, that was, for a kid watching that would be horrifying. That was extremely violent. You know, we were talking about before on the Godzilla one, the last video we did, that you wanted it to be more violent.
Yeah, this had, see, like, even
violent.
stuff like this. Like, the violence was small but effective. And that's what Godzilla didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So you got this all-powerful being, and it's just using blast wave, and you never see the casualties. Where here, there's not much killing. And, like, when they do show it, it's really effective. And the imagery is very powerful in certain things. It's kind of a shame. Because, like, I wish they focus more on, you know, maybe beefing up the story a little bit, beefing up certain things, because the art is just so well done.
Well, I would have liked the villain to be a little bit more fleshed out. Like, he was a very standard I'm evil villain, and then didn't really show up much until the end.
Yeah, he wasn't a Jafar or a Scar or
yeah, he didn't have like a
personality.
He didn't have much of a personality. No, he was like a Sauron, very much of like an eye in the tower kind of thing. But I liked his. Want to
be compared to.
Yeah, I liked his look.
Yeah,
I liked the way he looked. I liked his sound. John Hurt did a great voice work with him, and but I would have liked him to be more fleshed out.
Yeah, I mean, I think they focused on, you know, the kid, you know, getting his Wizard of Oz characters together, where, you know, he stumbles upon different people to be part of his team, and the very, very, very similar in a lot of ways to me, the Gollum-like thing that talks almost like Andy Serkis, and it's kind of creepy. It's like, did Andy Serkis, like, watch this movie before doing Two Towers?
Well, you could say that this movie might have been influenced by the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings animated movies from the 70s and the 60s.
Yeah, but did they didn't have, you know, the Andy Serkis Golems. I don't remember him sounding like that. It was more of, these Bagginsons and Bobbinsons. Like, he was Grinching it up, or, you know, Dr. Seussing it up.
Well, and that character, you know, the little fuzzy dude, he was like kind of annoying in the beginning, but then by the end you're in love with him. And it reminded me a lot of the same kind of character arc as Dobby from Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah.
Dobby is very annoying to me in the beginning.
And then by the
end, he was like my favorite character.
It's so sad
when I was reading the books, and when he died, I out loud at work, because I was working graveyards at this, doing computer tech support, and I was reading it when we were slow, and I got to that part, and everybody in the room knew where I kind of was, and they had already read the book, and they were waiting for it, and then you hear me go, "No!" And my friend Jeremy, he's like, "Did you get to the part?" And I'm like, "Dobby." He's like, "Yep, I was waiting for that."
Oh gosh.
Like,
yeah,
that killed me.
I remember.
So when he sacrificed himself in the Black Cauldron, it had an impact. You know,
I wish he died, though.
He did die.
But then he came back.
Then they brought him back. He was the one wish. Which happens in a lot of movies where they give them one wish, they bring back whatever loved character back to
I
life.
know, I just don't like that. It's just like, kill him.
Let him stay dead.
Yeah, like, it's like, dude, you got one wish. Why not grant 1,000 wishes?
I don't think it works like that. Like, even the genie says, I can't grant more wishes.
But yeah, I mean, I like the sacrifice. It just kind of sucks because it's one of those things where I knew instantly, oh, they're just going to bring him back somehow.
Yeah, I think my original thought when I saw it, I must have been like, I think I was like 12 or 13 when I first saw the movie. And my original thought was that he would be brought back to life by, you know, the loophole that you see in a lot of movies of selfless acts.
Yeah.
If someone dies from a selfless act, then they kind of get a mulligan, and they get to be brought back to life because it was a selfless act. That was the big thing in the movie Constantine with Keanu Reeves.
Yep.
Is he sacrificed himself and then the devil couldn't have him. And you have the iconic scene of him getting pulled and floated away towards heaven as he's flipping Satan off.
Yep. Boy, I wish that's how it worked in the real life. We're like,
I loved it, yeah.
We're like, you know, I know someone's going to die, and I self-sacrifice and take me instead of them, and then they're just like, you know, for that, you get brought back. Cool. Just keep doing this. You know how many people you know how many people would have been saved in, like, Storming Normandy, which is now the second movie I've referenced Normandy now. But, like, so many people self-sacrificed and left and right instantly brought back.
That's true. We would win the war. Or we did win the war. But we would have won it sooner.
Yeah, unless they were you know, we had to figure out who self-sacrificed more.
I also saw a lot of parallels with Sword in the Stone.
I have not seen that. There's a lot of Disney movies, like, I wouldn't necessarily say the random ones, but like the less mainstream ones, I guess I would say. Like, I've seen
the lesser knowns.
Yeah, I've seen Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, but I haven't seen like Pinocchio, Dumbo. You know, a lot of the '80s ones.
Did you see The Great Mouse Detective?
Nope.
All right, we may have to do that one at some point because I love that movie too. And actually, it's a really good Sherlock movie. Even though they're mice, it's a very good Sherlock movie. And it has a lot of dark themes in it and a bunch of bad guys getting drunk, which is
awesome.
Seemed to be a thing back in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. Get all of your cartoon characters drunk. Which is cool.
I've seen most of the '90s ones, of course. Seen almost none of the 2000s because I didn't know they existed, mainly because like Pixar and DreamWorks were kicking the crap out of Disney.
So you didn't see like Atlantis?
No.
I love that movie. And that was the last movie that had I can't remember his real name, but he was Ernest P. Worrell.
Oh gosh,
I can't remember his name now.
Jim Varney.
Jim Varney, thank you. I loved him. I loved all the Ernest movies. I was the perfect age for all of that stuff. And he did the voice of the cook.
Yeah, well, he also did the voice of
Slinky.
Which I did not know that, but yeah, he also did the voice of Slinky. And there's a movie that I'm going to select. Three Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain. Oh. The fourth Three Ninjas movie. And
no one's going to want to listen to these reviews, dude.
all I have to say, you're the one who picked the black hole.
I think people might want to hear about it.
Yeah, but this is a bad movie, so people will want to watch. All I have to say is this: Hulk Hogan versus Ernest P. Worrell.
I've seen it, I think, but I saw it once probably when it came out. Because I liked the Three Ninja movies. I was the perfect age for that when it came out. I think the first one came out when I was like 10, so I was the perfect age for those. But, okay, well, we'll revisit that later. Going back to the Black Cauldron. The Black Cauldron almost bankrupted Disney. It was it did such poor numbers in the theaters that it almost killed the Disney animated studio.
Man, just saying, 30 years later, now look at them.
Yeah.
It's weird how a company can happen, then in 30 years they'll probably be bankrupt again.
Well, not anymore, but the two movies in Disney history that had the most impact, one positive, one negative. The positive was Jungle Book. They sunk all of their money into the Jungle Book when it came out. And so if the Jungle Book didn't make a profit, Disney would have gone under.
That's a ballsy move.
Yeah. And so because of the Jungle Book, we now have Disney today. If Jungle Book failed, Disney would not be what it is. And the Black Cauldron is the other movie. The only reason they were able to survive the Black Cauldron was because they had the Great Mouse Detective and the Rescuers that came after that. And that made enough money to kind of cover the cost, but it still hurt them pretty big. It was to the point where after the Black Cauldron came out, they took a hiatus for a while. There's a good number of years between those movies from the early 80s up until the movies they made in the...
Like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast.
Well, no, you had movies like Lady and the Tramp, but they went... That's the turning point from dark to super kid-friendly movies. So like all of the Disney movies before that, from the 40s up through the early 80s, had a lot of dark themes to it. Sleeping Beauty had Maleficent. Cinderella had the daughters and the stepmother. Like they had very dark, closer to the Grimm tales that they were borrowing from. And then after the Black Cauldron, they had to turn that. They had to turn it around, and what they did was make it everything more kid-friendly. So the Black Cauldron, in a way, killed all of the dark themes that Disney was going to be doing. So it's a bittersweet for me. It's my favorite of the dark Disney films, but it's also the one that stopped all the dark Disney films. So it's cool, but sucks at the same time.
Well, at least we got, Pirates of the Caribbean. That's a pretty dark movie. It's not anime.
I'm talking about animated.
I know. Hey, there's CG in it a lot. So it's kind of anime.
You could argue that the Black Cauldron is darker than the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Yeah.
Just in tone alone. The tone alone is much darker. Pirates of the Caribbean is still, fun and light and kind of kid-friendly. It just has a dark villain. I did see a lot of parallels with Sword in the Stone.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the kid being about the same age. You had
blonde hair.
You also had the older mentor, who in Black Cauldron it was that farmer guy that was also a kind of wizard, but more of just there to protect the kid and the pig. In Sword in the Stone, it was Merlin. You had the witches, all kinds of things that paralleled the two. But from Disney movie aspect, Sword in the Stone is a better movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not as dark as the Black Cauldron. They're actually considering making Sword in the Stone as live action like they did Beauty and the Beast and Jungle Book and all. You know, they say Lion King, but that's not... Lion King is not going to be live action. It's a CG movie. It's just realistic looking CG.
I'm not looking forward to any of this, but...
We'll see. I'm not a huge fan of just redoing your movies in live action. But I keep seeing them, and they're not bad. So it's like...
But it can't be that hard.
I would like to see more original stuff.
But, you know, that's Disney's MO. Just copy.
Well, the past 10 years.
Yeah, that's almost half my life.
Oh. Well, I remember a time when it was different. So for me,
I remember a time.
Back when I was your age.
And I'm like over here like, what the fuck, Disney?
Yeah. But I hope they have more original stuff. I mean, we're getting original stuff with Pixar. So, at least a part of Disney is coming up with original things. Because Coco was great. Coco was original, and it was a great movie.
I mean, this was part of Disney, but Zootopia was excellent.
Zootopia and, well, Frozen.
Yeah.
And that was a Disney film. That was original.
So I guess we have to wait every 3 to 4 years for
the Frozen sequel.
for a Disney original movie.
Yeah. But, you know, we'll see. I mean, the Black Cauldron has a special place in my heart because it came out, or I was the age where it was very impactful. And if you watch something that dark when you're like 6 years old, it's going to stick with you.
See, I'm trying to think of my version of the Black Cauldron.
I think with your age range, there isn't anything that came out in theaters that would be that dark, that you would have seen that wasn't rated R.
One movie I can think of. And obviously with... actually, there are a couple movies, and a couple of them are almost as dark. One being Batman Massive Phantasm. I saw that like when I was 5. And obviously I'm obsessed with the movie. I have a VHS right behind my camera. I have a DVD right behind me, and I got a Blu-ray right over there. And plus I got a couple action figures from that movie. The other stuff would be like Dragon Ball Z, but like the movies. Those movies are pretty violent. Like they'll show like some dude like punch a hole through someone, and a bunch of blood will be everywhere. And I was like 7 or 8. Like the first episode I ever watched of Dragon Ball Z, I watch a guy with a sword just cut this guy up and then blast him to smithereens. And then like the next episode, punch a hole through some guy, and as the guy's like pleading to like not kill him, he just blasts his head off. And I'm like, I'm sold.
Yeah. Those are violent.
And like with all the negatives of Dragon Ball Z has, I still like love the show, and it's, you know, partly it's because like it does have a special place in my heart from when I was really young, but also like there is cool stuff like that where I can go back and back.
But it's funny that the things that really stick with us throughout our lives are the ones that had darker adult themes to it. You know, Star Wars has darker adult themes. It's made for kids, but it's got some dark adult themes in there. The Dark Crystal, that one stuck with me a lot too. A lot of
Lord of the Rings for me, I was 9 years old. Yeah, I was 9 years old watching Two of the Towers.
Oh my god, dude. I was in college. I am so old. I was 21 when Lord of the Rings came out.
Yeah, I was in 3rd grade.
You make me feel old every time I talk. I don't know why we do so many videos together.
Well, it's because I relate to older people.
Yeah, you watched a lot of stuff that we grew up with. You just saw it later.
Part of it is you can blame my uh, home video store or rental store. Gosh, now that sounds old.
That's true. I used to go.
Home video store. But your the rental store. It was called Titletown, and they had like a lot of like older stuff. I mean, that's like I watched like the '60s Batman movie all the time. Like they had that on VHS. Transformers movie. Like I had a lot of that stuff, and so like a lot of the stuff that I watched as a kid was from stuff that was from the '80s, from the '60s, from the '70s, and then now as a filmmaker and stuff, I watch all that stuff now. So it's just
Well, we need to get you to watch more of those older Disney films because I think you would like them just because of the more darker adult themes that are in them. So,
yeah, because it's weird because the only one that I've really seen, come to think about it, I don't think I've even seen Sleeping Beauty. I think I might have just seen Snow White out of all the old ones, and that's because we had that on VHS. And for like 5 years, when I was like 10, I thought Snow White came out in the 90s. Because Disney made it seem like that all these movies came out in the 90s when I was like 6. It's like, gosh, Disney's making a lot of stuff.
no,
They come to realize, I'm like, no, that was from the 30s.
Yeah, that was from the 30s. Well, in Sleeping Beauty, you get another dark villain just like in the Black Cauldron with Maleficent. She's actually been flushed out a bit more. Mm-hmm. Like, I would prefer in the Black Cauldron that they flushed him out as well as they did Maleficent.
I also just think they should flesh out the characters more in the Black Cauldron. Like,
they did kind of just start abruptly, as if they had skipped 20 minutes of characterization.
Because so some good examples. So when I was younger, I really, really enjoyed Hercules, the movie, and I always loved the fact that they do set up the character. He's this scrawny person thinks he can do more, wants to go on adventures and all that stuff. Like you get that set up, then he starts singing. In the Black Cauldron, you get none of that. I also looked up some history about the Black Cauldron, and it's the only movie, at least I think it's the only movie, but it's the first movie I know at least where there's no singing.
Yeah, there's no major songs.
Yeah, there's no one who sings at all. They they didn't do that. What was the other thing? Oh, it was the first movie to incorporate CGI for an animated movie.
Yeah, it was.
Which is crazy because there's so many historical things with it. I think it's just one of those movies where Disney tried too many new things. So maybe we can get away with not doing the singing or not doing the singing.
Well, a lot of times the first movie to try something isn't always the one that does well.
But what's bizarre is that no one tried to do it again.
Well, that's because in the mind of producers, the mind of Hollywood, if it doesn't make money, it didn't work. It's not let's try and figure out how to make this work. It's nope, it failed, so we won't do it again.
So there's no. Well, I mean,
but it wasn't the CGI that made the movie fail. It was the dark themes and the story. But I still love the movie. Especially if from a kid, being a kid watching it, I love the movie.
I will say 80s kids are probably really messed up because they have this movie, they have the 86 Transformers movie. They got all these dark kid movies.
Dude, we got, The Return to Oz. Have you ever seen that?
No, I'm not.
That is some messed up.
I think
that's some messed up kid stuff. I loved it.
I'm trying to think. I'm thinking, outside of obviously rated R movies, but in terms of animated movies, I can't. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dark one. I love it. Well, I think we explored most of what we could with this. Let's give it a grade.
I will say one last thing. I liked Black Cauldron, the Black Cauldron, but I think one of the biggest problems is there's not a lot of stuff in the movie. Like, it feels like the story and the characters feel very generic.
Right.
But, like, I mean, the best aspect of the entire movie is the imagery.
Yeah, the imagery, and, you know, I do like the little fuzzy dude. Even though he was annoying at first, he did grow on me. And so his sacrifice had some weight to it. He probably had more characterization than anybody else in the movie.
Yeah, I mean,
which makes sense. Solo. He's the one that you're killing off, kind of. And so he's got to have some emotional weight to his sacrifice, so you got to build him up.
Yeah.
But I agree, the other main characters, it felt like they started the movie 20 minutes in and then just went for it. So,
and also, like, the story is, even though, like, they explain it super quick, the story feels so much bigger than a 70-minute movie. Yeah. Like, they're like, oh, this guy, he's in a castle, he's going to summon an undead army. I'm like, I feel like this should be a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, like, whoa, slow down. Can we back up?
Like, I feel like this should be a 2-hour movie. Like, you see, like, people in peril, but there's, like, it does feel like such a low-budget movie to some extent, because you never see, like, okay, who's the undead army going to kill? You never see those people. You only see one other human, and that was the mentor at the very beginning. Like you don't get that. Like once again, in Hercules, you see the Titans rampaging, the city and stuff,
right?
And then going to Mount Olympus.
Yeah, you don't have victims in this movie,
and I think it's. I don't know. Like obviously, you said Disney went bankrupt after this, or almost went bankrupt.
They were close.
And maybe that's part of it. Is that, like, they didn't have a lot of money to, because even like something like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, like, you get, like, I mean, obviously you get characters. They're like, in 5 minutes they describe all the dwarves and all their character traits, like that. And you know what the queen wants, what she's trying to do, and you know who Snow White is. And Snow White came out, 50 years before it, and so it was the first full-length animated movie, so it couldn't do as much. But yet you see everything, you see the perils. With this, you don't get it as much. Like I just feel like it's like, come on. Like,
well,
if they just had
if you save the time of not having the songs, you should have filled that in with characterization. And they didn't really do that too much. And the movie is shorter. It's only, just over an hour. It should have been at least an hour and a half and had more characterization, be a 90-minute movie, and flush some characters out and expand the storyline a bit. But let's grade it. I'm going to give the Black Cauldron, my critics' point of view would give it a C+. My nostalgia is going to bump it up to a B. Because for me, it's a dark movie I saw as a kid, so it always stuck with me, and it has like a special nostalgia thing right there. So I'm going to give that nostalgia bump.
The nostalgia bump.
The nostalgia bump.
Wait until we watch some of my nostalgic movies if we ever get to that point.
Yeah, it'll be like F.
First of all, I want to say Three Ninjas High Noon at Mega Mountain is not one of those.
Yeah.
I saw it like once and just has always stuck with me as this movie's horrendous. But anyway,
I must share it with other people.
Yeah, I mean that's the fun never stops.
No. All right, what's your grade?
I would go with a C.
A C?
I think if you've never seen the movie, two things: watch it for historical context, for the company, and just for dark animated movies, and the imagery. Those are the two biggest things. The characters are very, very bland. There's not a lot of diversity in them. The main villains, your stereotypical villain, except you don't know why he wants an undead army. From the sounds of it, he wants an undead army just to have an undead army. You know what? Let him have an undead army.
Well, he wanted to be worshipped. He wanted to be, he wants to be a king. He wants people to bow down to him. And having an undead army, once he brings them back, the first thing he has them do is kneel.
That was one thing I wanted to mention real quick before we end this. If I remember right, when the humans found out, the human people who were with him, when they found out he was building an undead army, didn't the undead warriors kill them?
I don't know.
There's a part where that's the part. Yes, now I remember. Yeah, they're cutting them down, and then you see a shot of blood dripping through, and that is the one part where I was like, holy shit. Because you just see these people chopping them down, and it does a close-up of a sword, and it's dripping blood from it. Yeah. And then it cuts to a skeleton with blood running from its eyes. And I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. Am I high? Who knows? But this is insane.
Yeah, but it was very quick.
Yeah.
So it is one of those kind of shock. Whoa, did they just slaughter humans in this Disney movie? Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I will say that. Actually, to be honest, if you're going to watch this movie, watch it for the boob scene, because that is something I have never seen before.
That is unique to this movie alone. Well, you could say Sword in the Stone kind of had something like that.
That was insane.
I was not to that level.
I was like, I hope no one else sees I'm watching this. I think I'm watching something really wrong.
Watching some Disney frog porn. What's going on?
Oh gosh.
All right, well, thanks for joining me on this. We'll have to do some more. We're going to be doing Twitch streams. We don't have a set schedule right now. It's more of if you want to know when we're doing them, follow me on the social media stuff, Facebook, Twitter. I'm also on Instagram and a Discord server, but a lot of my live streams I only announce on Facebook and Twitter. But and then YouTube, Koricon Nerd. A lot of our Twitch stuff is going to be coming from my second channel, Koricon Nerd.
Oh, and obviously SoundCloud.
Oh yeah, and all of these will be on the podcast for SoundCloud, which is also available on iTunes and Google Play, TuneIn, and Stitcher.
You are just everywhere.
I'm everywhere. So if you know of a platform, probably search Koricon. I might be on there. Yeah. Pretty much. There's only a couple that I don't think I'm on, but I wanted to try out this Twitch thing, so we're starting this.
Oh boy.
And it's mostly going to be, right now, I think our Twitch streams are going to be these movie discussions.
Unless we can figure out a way of me playing video games and talking about movies, which that'd be entertaining.
You could.
Well, when I get better internet, we will definitely talk about that.
Yeah, you don't have my amazing internet.
No, I do not.
Of course, most people don't have my amazing internet.
It's also true.
I think we're 1% of the country. Anyway. Thanks for joining us, guys. If you're on the podcast, check out my YouTube channel and this Twitch, twitch.tv/Koricon. If you're on Twitch, go check out the podcast and the YouTube channels. And if you're on YouTube, go check out Twitch and the podcasts. Let's get everybody on everything, and follow me on the social medias if you want more information, and come and say hello. So Thank you guys for joining.
Well, we should at least announce probably what our next one's going to be. You know, a little stay tuned. Because I think we talked about that we wanted to do Annihilation.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a review of Annihilation. Well, I'm going to do
Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
No, not Mortal Kombat Annihilation. The new movie with Natalie Portman. But I'm going to be doing my normal review of it on Koricon Nerd. And then you, me, and maybe Ian?
Yep.
Are going to do a discussion here on Twitch. It'll be a spoiler discussion. So if you haven't seen the movie, maybe just watch my review on Koricon Nerd if you want to decide if you want to see it. And then come back here. But I think that's going to be our next Twitch live stream. We just don't know when it's going to be yet. Because I still need to see the movie. And
it didn't come out till
this weekend.
Like tonight.
Yeah. So I haven't seen it. So we'll be trying to watch that sometime this weekend, and then maybe we'll find a time next week that all of us will have time off. That's going to be a hard part, finding a time when all of us can be at the same place at the same time.
Well, good news is we don't have to be there at the same place. Otherwise, that would be really hard.
Right. Well, it's the same place as in being online. Being online at the same time. So, and then I got to figure out how to fit a third person in here. But I'll figure that out. So, stay tuned for that stream. That should be interesting. Be the first time I do 3 people. And, yeah. Follow me on all the stuff. Bye, everybody. See ya. Toodles. Adios, mi amigo.